All right, so today we're putting on our detective hats. We're going to be digging into some of history's greatest cold cases. Think of it as an archaeological expedition, but what we're really unearthing is the incredible, forgotten genius of the ancient world.
So let's just dive right in with one massive question. What if the solutions to some of our biggest modern problems, we're talking everything from sustainable infrastructure to even mental health, what if those solutions aren't waiting out there to be invented, but are actually just waiting to be rediscovered?
You know, we have this idea that history is just this simple, straight line, always marching upward. Cavemen, pyramids, Romans, and then us, right at the top. But the archaeological record, the actual hard evidence, tells a way more fascinating story. It's one of these incredible peaks of knowledge, followed by these mysterious valleys of forgotten wisdom. Our first case file takes us back to the Roman Empire, where we're going to investigate a material that, really, it just defies modern science. It's a form of concrete that almost seems alive. So here's the core of the mystery. Our very best modern concrete, the stuff we build our entire world with, it has a service life of maybe 50 to 100 years before it starts to crack and degrade. Meanwhile, you've got Roman structures like the Pantheon that are still standing, looking almost perfect after 2,000 years. So how is that even possible? The difference here is just staggering. I mean, take its reaction to seawater. Modern concrete, with all its steel rebar, it just rusts and crumbles in the ocean. But Roman seawalls, they actually get stronger over time. The saltwater triggers these chemical reactions that create new reinforcing minerals. And that's the crucial point. Our concrete is passive. Roman concrete is active. It literally heals itself.
For decades, scientists looked at these little white specks that were embedded in Roman concrete, and they just dismissed them as, sloppy mixing, a flaw. But a team at MIT suspected this so-called flaw might actually be the secret. It was the crucial clue, hiding in plain sight the whole time.
And this is where they cracked the case. Researchers discovered the Romans weren't just using standard slaked lime. No, they were using reactive quicklime in a process they call hot mixing. You add this quicklime to wet volcanic ash, and it creates this powerful chemical reaction, heating the entire mixture up and creating these unique, super stress-resistant compounds.
So here's how the self-healing actually works. A tiny little crack forms in the concrete. Okay, no problem. Water seeps in, and when it hits one of those flawed lime clasts, it dissolves it. This creates a calcium-rich liquid that flows right into the crack, and then it recrystallizes, basically forming a mineral scar. Just like that, the crack is sealed solid with new calcium carbonate. The structure has literally healed its own wound, preventing a small flaw from becoming a catastrophic failure. I mean, imagine if our modern bridges and buildings could do that. The cement industry makes up about 8% of global CO2 emissions. This ancient idea could be a blueprint for a dramatically more sustainable future. Okay, so the mystery of the living concrete is cracked. For our next case, we're heading to the Andes Mountains, to a city built in a location that really shouldn't even be possible: Machu Picchu. The Incan engineers who designed this city were facing an absolute nightmare scenario. They're on a knife-edge ridge, they're getting hit with torrential rain, and they're in a region that constantly shakes with earthquakes. By all logic, this city should have just slid right off the mountain centuries ago. So how'd they do it? Well, the answer is incredible. Because the city you see, all the beautiful stone buildings, that's just the tip of the iceberg. The real engineering genius, about 60% of the entire construction effort at Machu Picchu, is completely invisible. It's all underground. Underneath the plazas and temples is this massive, multi-layered drainage system. The Incas knew their main enemy wasn't gravity, it was water. So they built this incredibly sophisticated filter, a layer of topsoil for farming, then sand to slow the water down, and finally a deep bed of granite chips that just funnels all that rainfall safely away from the city's foundations. So that solved the water problem. But what about the earthquakes? This is where the Incan genius is it's breathtaking. Modern engineering is all about rigidity, right? About building structures to resist seismic forces. The Incas took the exact opposite approach. They didn't build to fight the earth, they built to move with it. They perfected this technique called Ashler Masonry. They cut these massive stones so perfectly that they fit together like a puzzle, with no mortar needed at all. So when an earthquake hits, the stones don't crack, they vibrate, they shift, they quite literally dance in place. The energy of the quake just gets dissipated, and when the shaking stops, the stones settle right back where they were.
It's such an elegant, almost living solution to a deadly problem. It's absolute genius.
So the crucial point here is that this isn't just about clever concrete or earthquake-proof walls. These are just two files from a vast, forgotten library of human knowledge. It makes you wonder, what other blueprints for a better future have we simply lost?
Let's look at some other cases real quick. In ancient Egypt, over 3,500 years ago, we find the Edwin Smith Papyrus. It's a surgical textbook describing 48 trauma cases. And what's amazing is it's almost entirely free of magic. Instead, it relies on diagnosis and observation. It even documented that an injury to one side of the brain causes paralysis on the opposite side of the body. That's a foundational concept in modern neurology they understood millennia ago.
Or how about mental health? This quote from the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. It sounds like it could come from a therapy session today, right? Well, that's because it's the core principle of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, one of the most effective modern treatments for anxiety and depression. The founders of CBT explicitly said they built their framework on the 2,000-year-old wisdom of the Stoics.
And in agriculture, we find stunning examples of ancient systems solving modern problems. The Three Sisters system, used by indigenous American nations, is a perfect symbiotic machine where corn provides a trellis, beans fix nitrogen in the soil, and squash acts as a living mulch. Or in the Amazon, we found this man-made terra preta soil, enriched with biochar, that has stayed fertile for thousands of years. These aren't just historical curiosities, they are potential solutions to modern soil depletion.
And urban planning? While 19th century London was dealing with the Great Stink, cities like Mohenjo-Daro in the Indus Valley had already figured it all out 4,500 years ago. Nearly every single house had a private bathroom and toilet connected to a citywide network of covered street drains. They prioritized public health on a scale that just wouldn't be seen again for millennia.
This all leads to the final, critical question in our investigation. If all this technology, all this wisdom, was so effective, so powerful, what happened to it? Why did we have to spend centuries relearning things we already knew?
Well, the evidence points to several culprits. There's violent destruction, like when the Spanish conquest systematically erased Incan and Mayan records. There's the slow decay of intellectual centers, like the fading of the Library of Alexandria. But maybe the most insidious cause is what we could call the arrogance of the present. This bias that makes us assume that anything ancient must be primitive, and it blinds us to the genius right in front of us.
And that leads us to our final takeaway. We are absolutely obsessed with innovation as an act of pure creation, of just making something brand new. But these ancient technologies, they really challenge that idea.
They suggest that perhaps the most profound innovation isn't always about inventing the next new thing. It's about having the humility and the wisdom to look back and rediscover the durable, resilient, and brilliant ideas that our ancestors already perfected. The blueprints are there. We just have to be willing to read them.